Octopath Travelers 2 takes everything that made the first game interesting and unique and dialed it up to 11. It is by no means a perfect game, as it takes a few too many homages from previous games of the genre, specifically retro RPGs. There are things that I praise Chained Echoes for that could have absolutely benefited the Octopath franchise by a lot, but given the sales of Octopath Travelers 2, it looks like they'll have the chance to correct them in Part 3. Octopath is an interesting franchise because it has Final Fantasy-esque elements while still being something new. It gives the vibe that Squeenix is using two franchises to satiate us turn-based combat lovers while Final Fantasy continues to go completely off the rails into the realm of the action genre. These franchises are Bravely Default, which is 3 games deep, and Octopath Travelers, which is 2 games and a mobile game deep. For those of us who have been disappointed with the direction the Final Fantasy franchise seems to be taking, it may be time to accept that it won't be returning to its roots anytime soon. So let's start off by talking about what I think the game does well. First, I would like to say that the combat is phenomenal. Absolutely smacks of Shin Megami Tensei, and you know I'm always down for that. It also has this pairing of Final Fantasy X. It functions on the now staple of modern turn-based RPGs, the turn order bar. At the top of the screen, you can see who is going in what order for that turn. The turn order can be manually manipulated with abilities, and sometimes it will change based on the enemy state. For instance, if you break an enemy, once they recover they are guaranteed to get their turn first. What is breaking? Glad you asked. This is where the game has a lot in common with the Shin Megami Tensei franchise. Every enemy has a set of unknown weaknesses at the start of combat. Through trial and error, examining them, which upon hitting will remove a shield. After removing all of an enemy's shield, which varies in amount based on the opponent, they become stunned for 1 or 2 turns depending on if they had moved already during the turn you broke them. This creates a combat system that prevents you from, or punishes you for, overly relying on auto attacks unless you vastly overpower your enemies. The game also rewards you for combat efficiency. Every encounter becomes a unique puzzle to figure out how to succeed given your chosen party configuration. As far as weaknesses, there are multiple weapon and elemental weaknesses for you to exploit, as well as target all attacks with those weapons and sometimes even multi-hits to ensure you remove multiple shields in a single turn. Of course, that's just getting into the baseline skills for classes. Ochette can have multiple monsters she's captured to exploit both weapon and elemental weaknesses. Hikari can beat up townspeople to learn their skills and thus gain access to weapon attacks beyond what he has equipped. Some characters can recruit townspeople who, in addition to having their own weapons, can sometimes far outpower any of your other party members. Then, on top of all of that, everyone can equip a secondary job which gives them access to even more skills and attack types. Honestly, it's kind of nuts. Octopath Travelers 2 is about breaking the game as much as you possibly can. Boss battles mix things up a bit by alternating weaknesses, summoning mobs that can block their weaknesses for them, and they usually have some sort of super attack that is projected 1 turn in advance that will force you to guard at worst or break them ASAP at best. In addition, every character has a latent power that fills up over the course of combat and gives access to super attacks of one form or another. The final major mechanic is the BP system, or battle points, which may remind you of Bravely Default, but rather than allowing for multiple actions, every skill in the game can be powered up in some way by expending BP. Doing so, up to 3, can increase the damage of attacks, the duration of buffs and debuffs, or even increase the effects of healing. There's also mixing items as an apothecary, buying off enemies, or hiring mercenaries as the merchant, and just a billion other things you can do in combat. Once you have access to all 8 travelers, the combinations are nearly endless, especially since using a combination of gear and abilities, you can customize a traveler to do specific things, as each piece of gear usually has a strength and a weakness. One axe might have a crap ton of damage but minus 50 accuracy, while another one has a good mix of physical attack and elemental damage, and another one still has okay attack power but it gives you plus 20 speed. Again, endless combinations. When you first pick your character, you have to follow a set path for their quests. This is how it is for all chapter 1s in the game, should you choose to do them. However, as soon as you leave your starting area, you realize, oh god, this is an open world game. At that point, the game can immediately be daunting. Luckily, anytime you approach a screen transition, the game shows you the name of the area and the danger level, which is basically what level the baddies are. This keeps you from wandering into some insanely high-leveled beast that will slaughter your entire party. While you're an adult and can do whatever you want with your life, I highly recommend getting all 8 characters and playing their stories, as holy crap, they are all awesome. Part of the problem with Octopath Travelers 1 was that it felt so disconnected. No one appeared in each other's cutscenes, and none of the storylines were especially gripping. This is not the case with this game. The only story that I wasn't super interested in was the merchant story, and even then he's so goddamn charming with his southern accent and complete and total wholesomeness that you'll love it just for him. And now we arrive at my big criticism for the game. Storylines progress one level at a time, and they always tell you exactly where to go and what level the quest is. It's cozy and delightful, but the side quests are not so kind. When you get to a town, you will see a bunch of orange stars on your map which indicate someone will give you a side quest. Obtaining them and completing them gives some honestly tangible and fantastic rewards, unlike games like Xenoblade Chronicles and that ilk. The problem is they can be so obtuse. A fantastic example is the sick girl you encounter. Her quest line basically involves you to check off her bucket list to give her a reason to live. You get the list, but that's all the game tells you. She wants a crepe, she wants to read a book, and she wants to meet a famous florist. Where do you get the crepe? Who has the book? Where is the florist? Good freaking luck finding them. You have to talk to every NPC to know who they are and what they do. There are no quest markers. There are no indicators. If you want to complete these quests, you're gonna have to earn it the old-fashioned way. Or use a guide. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 at least gives you quest markers to go on, but Octopath Traveler says, screw you! I'm gonna be a 100-hour game. As a streamer who shamelessly plugs his own channels during his review of the game, I found it to be a daunting venture to do the side quests on stream. I don't mind talking to important looking NPCs in RPGs for info or lore, but every single goddamn character in this game has something to steal. Interesting information. Maybe you pay them $5,000 and they reveal a hidden item. It is honestly insane how important and alive this game is. It is both a strength and a weakness. Even the children have stuff to steal. The random NPC at the back of the tavern might be an 8-star difficulty battle that Hikari can learn some amazing skill from. Half the game is spent robbing, mugging, beating up, bribing, and talking to NPCs. When someone says the game is 100 hours long, understand that without a guide, 35 hours of that is literally talking to NPCs. Unless you have infinite time, use a guide. The last thing I want to mention is the character interactions. There's not much of them, but there's more than the first game. The thing you have to understand is that this is Octopath Travelers, not Octopath Frenzies. Mechanically, yes, your party is there to make the game more fun and interesting, but as far as the plot is concerned, he's off doing his own thing. Everyone is just traveling together, that's it. There are new storylines called Cross Path that involve two travelers teaming up for quests, but even then it's easy to forget that it's just those two characters together for the sake of the story, despite all four of them being in combat and on screen. It can be really jarring if you don't set this knowledge into your mind and keep it there, but this game does set a hard line between game mechanics and story. As I mentioned previously, every storyline is a banger, from Detective Priest to Dancing McGimmeer stuff. Those are my most noteworthy thoughts on the game. Other less noteworthy things would be the music. It's good, but none of it stands out so much that I feel the need to name a specific song. The voice acting, you can tell when Agni is getting upset because their southern accent comes out, and as a born and raised southerner who hates his own accent, this shit's relatable. The exploration isn't super intense, a couple of off the beaten path trails that are generally obvious and lead to treasures. You also come across areas that have huge level requirements that you'll want to make note of for future plundering. It's a great game with some tolerable flaws. The sprite work is honestly next level. The amount of emotion and detail they can convey using pixel art style is pretty astounding. I highly recommend the game, even if you didn't like the first one, but seriously, use a guide. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, be sure to do likes, comments, and subscriptions, all that good stuff. It helps out so very much, and share this with your friends too. If you're on the fence about Octopath Travelers 2 or any other game, let me know in the comments below, and I will try my best to help you steer in the correct direction. But until next time, deuces dummies.